So let's first backtrack to your school days. Okay. Did you have an inclusive curriculum that included play?
Well, thank you for having me actually today morning. My school days had play infused with it, though it was not really hinged on so much for development of the child with learning, and I think this is what we're trying to do with this project.
Okay, and so how intentional is Play Matters today?
Play Matters is very intentional because we are looking at providing holistic learning and improvement of a child through using techniques like learning, and so I think we're very intentional with this project, and we aim to believe that it will improve the learning and livelihood of children in the refugee settlements.
All right, let's backtrack a bit. How did Play Matters actually come into inception? What was the problem? Which areas was this problem? And what were you trying to solve?
Great. So we realized there was a need to improve learning of refugee children. Uganda is well known for hosting refugees across the globe, and since the influx of refugees has caused an area of where we need to provide learning for children. Mm-hmm. So we came in with this project and this concept to improve the learning of children in refugee settlements through play, because if you see, children tend to learn better when they're involved with games and playing. So we believe this project should be able to provide a good improvement of education for children in refugee settlements.
Okay, all right. On 20th June, we had the celebration of commemoration of World Refugee Day. Yes. The theme was safety, a right. And so how does what Play Matters actually do by and combine with the theme for this year?
Yes, what this is doing, Play Matters, is in line with World Refugee Day. It's in line because the theme this year was to improve holistic improvement of livelihoods of refugees. And we believe with this project and initiative, it's going to be able to see that the children in these settlements get the most adequate learning while they're enjoying. Because learning is one thing, but are they enjoying while doing it? And we believe through playing, it should be adequate enough.
Okay, all right. When did this project kick off, and upon kicking up, what have been the benefits and the results that have come out in terms of intellectual development of child?
Great. This project, in terms of, repeat your question, please.
And when was it rolled out?
When was it rolled out?
Yes.
It was rolled out 5 years ago, and this project, we believe it will increase the intellectual development of a child because when you look at the development and growth of a child, the first stages are very critical for brain development and general growth of the child. So the earlier you introduce a child to learning through an enjoyable way, like we're doing with this project, through games and learning. So we believe that if we tackle it from the beginning, as the child is developing, then they're able to have a good way they will grow up holistically.
Okay, all right. So you've mentioned games as part of the things that Play Matters actually adopts into the education system. Yes. What kind of games are we talking about? Because, I mean, there are other parents out there not necessarily having refugee children, but they would also like to adopt the same methodologies. This is infused in the pedagogical way of which the learning is delivered. So there are various games that you can infuse into learning. For example, there's the different choices of robotics, different simulations and exercises that we are going to see how we can infuse within these refugee camps to improve learning. Okay, yes. All right. So then I guess the big question would be, is there a plan for Play Matters to actually infuse some of these methodologies and techniques into mainstream education right now?
Yes, it definitely is there, and if you look at the angle in which the Ministry of Education is rolling out, even with the new abridged curriculum, it involves more infusion of play, of more hands-on experiences. So I believe this is a great initiative which is in line with what the Ministry of Education is also doing, with trying to improve learning through better pedagogical ways of including more hands-on and practical things like simulations that can improve learning.
Okay. Have you had a table discussion with the Ministry of Education and Sports in this regard, and if so, what has been their response?
Yes, we are actually in partnership. This project is being done collaboratively with the Ministry of Education, and they are very hands-on with it and in full support of it. So we believe that they will definitely help us steer it forward.
Okay, Edward, any other collaborations that you're having with maybe other government entities?
Other government entities. Of course, we are working with Ministry of Education. It's for now like the main player that we're with, partner with in this program.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And then we also want to know what have been the achievements in the 5 years of this project's existence so far.
The achievements?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. We have been able to see that we have set up good learning centers in these refugee settlements. That's in Chaka and Palamblek. And of course, we have also seen an improvement of how in which children in these refugee settlements are embracing learning, okay? Because it takes one thing to be a refugee in another country. There's a lot of psychological things that you go through. So we believe this has generally improved the attitude to learning, and we want to see it go on more and more.
All right. Which particular refugee settlements are you focusing on right now with Play Matters project?
There is one in Chegegwa called Chaka, and then in Lamo, Parambek. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. We're going to take a short breather and we return with the continued conversation.
Watching Morning at NTV.
The Oil and Gas Moment, brought to you by Petroleum Authority of Uganda, creating lasting value in Uganda's oil journey. In order to be contracted to supply goods and services for oil activities in Uganda, you must register on the National Suppliers Database. Between 2017 and 2021, close to 400 Ugandan entities were awarded various contracts to supply goods and services to the sector.
Tech Lab Limited is a geosciences company that has been offering geotechnical and geophysical investigation services to the East African market since its inception in 2002. Our experience working with AMA Energy has been a pleasurable one. The seismic surveys have always been on our radar, and when this opportunity came up, we put together a winning bid and became the first Ugandan company to provide seismic services under an oil and gas contract in Uganda.
Registration on the National Suppliers Database is free. Visit www.pau.go.ug, creating lasting value in Uganda's oil journey.
Mildmay Uganda is engaging faith communities to advance COVID-19 risk communication project under the Accelerating Epidemic Control Project. The project greatly prioritizes creating awareness on COVID-19 among the public through the faith-based fraternity with the aim of creating hope, promoting social or community cohesion around COVID-19 effects using the faith-based led model. Join our panelists Dr. Doreen Sechibombo, Head, Private Services Mildmay Uganda Hospital, Mr. Emmanuel Omoni, Laboratory Manager, Mildmay Uganda Hospital, and Mr. Tadeo Athura, the Communications and Partnership Manager, Mildmay Uganda, in a live talk show this Monday, 27th June 2022 at 11 a.m. as they directly engage faith leaders and technical teams, health workers, in sustaining SOPs, vaccination, and healthy living, and disseminate information on overall awareness on COVID-19 among the faith-based leaders among their followers and generate hope among COVID-19 cases by building a positive supportive network through the faith-based structures. Implemented by Mildmay Uganda in partnership with Ministry of Health with support from PEPFAR CDC.
On the next episode
is brought to you by
Enjoy as you win in the Trigateko promotion today.
On the next episode.
Now I know why she didn't want me to go with her to her apartment. She always gave 1,000 excuses. That it was very late. That her mother was terrible. Sheer lies. The truth is that she lives in one of those neighborhoods in downtown. Not Westwood.
And what's wrong with that?
Nothing.
I mean, there's a bunch of people who live there.
Stop. Quit bothering me and go already. I don't want you to lose your job because of me.
That would be the last straw. Imagine if I got fired just because I was rescued.
Winning is easy. Just buy a Rock Boom or La Vita and check under the cap. What you see is what you win. Enjoy as you win in the Twegateko promotion today. Call toll-free number 0800 299 008.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
Still on Morning at NTV, Priscilla Regina Nalwoge here. We continue with the question, does learning through play actually spur intellectual growth, especially as far as child development is concerned? Now, joining me still for the same conversation is Joseph Opondo, who is the Deputy Project Coordinator, Play Matters. Good morning to you, Joseph.
Good morning, Priscilla.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you? And it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'll start with going back to your school days. You had PE, and probably those were the days of you remove the shirt, stay in the short. And how was the inclusion of PE important or aided your education process onwards?
PE, it's physical education. The focus is largely on the physique, which of course learning through play comes to kind of change, because unlike PE, that you'd go to the field, learning through play is a teaching methodology that you can apply within the classroom. Learning through play actually happens when children in the classroom, their hands are on, and of course when their hands are on, their minds are also on. It happens when we have children socially interacting within the classroom, when they are actively engaged in the learning, when learning is actually meaningful, and when they are given the chance to try, to fail, to try and fail again. So, in as much as PE is part of play, learning through play goes beyond just the physical play of, going to the pitch and moving around. And this comes to touch the issue of quality of education, which you and I know that right now access, for instance, to education may still be an issue, but the most critical issue right now is the lack of the quality, what actually happens within the classroom. As that say live within Kampala, you might pay 1.5 million for your child in a school, but they read for them notes right from pre-primary. So children are naturally born to play. As mothers, you might actually know that even in the womb, they kick. So why do we deny them that right to actually learn in a playful manner? So beyond PE, learning through play actually goes beyond the physical aspect and contributes towards the cognitive growth of a child, which I think is a topic of discussion. Does learning through play improve the intellectual aspect? Yes. Beyond improving the cognitive or the intellectual growth of a child, it also improves their social skills, the emotional intelligence. It also, makes them more creative and critical thinkers, the most coveted skills of this generation.
Okay, all right. So I know that you belong to a consortium of partners,
yes.
And through that consortium, you actually sat down, did intentional research and
yes.
studies to be able to come up with projects such as Play Matters.
Yes.
Now, what were some of the discoveries in that research, 1, 2, and why focally on refugees?
Play Matters, like you've rightly observed, is a consortium. Partners, a group of partners coming together, led by the International Rescue Committee, but in partnership with Plan International, War Child Holland. We also partner with Behavior Insights team, Innovations for Poverty Action, then Lego Foundation, that actually is the one giving us the resources. But I also want to include another very important partner, which is the government of Uganda, that we work with collaboratively to see that this is mainstreamed within the education sector. So what informed this research? It is because studies prove that learning through play, and Play Matters as a consortium is hinged on providing evidence in addition to promoting learning through play. The desire also is to gather as much evidence as possible that this actually works, to take away the learning that perhaps we went through growing up, that when the teacher would walk into the classroom and sometimes even escape without knowing.
And they tell you, repeat after me. This is a board.
You know this very well.
Yes.
So how do we change that? Now we are building evidence to prove that actually you can still score the A's, you can still score the distinctions without necessarily going through the rote kind of learning, but allowing children to learn in their natural state. Why is this good for refugees? Like I alluded to earlier on, that the target of the program, learning through play itself, brings psychosocial healing, and you know that refugees they go through quite a lot. If you go to classrooms that are within the refugee setting, they are overcrowded. There are not enough learning materials. That needs very creative ways of teaching them, but also realizing that whenever we play, I'm not sure if you play sometimes, but when you play, you forget about the bank loans, you forget about the dates around you, you forget about all these pressures of having to wake up so early and come and do a morning show, because that's what play does. So play provides a bit of healing to people who have been displaced, to people who are disturbed psychologically, and this is why we are targeting the refugee community. But also just want to add that it's beyond just the refugee community, but also the host communities around them, because the schools in those places are very overcrowded, the learning needs and achievements are very low, and we think that a methodology like this that allows them to learn in their natural form with a lot of hands-on and minds-on, being actively engaged, would enable them thrive.
Okay, so please let us know where you're actively having this project running, in which settlements, and what have been the responses since inception of Play Matters in those settlements, both for refugees and host communities.
The program aims at, first of all, improving holistic learning and well-being outcomes in Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Uganda. Just before I come to your question, I should maybe let you know that right now, actually, we have the Ministry of Education that is hosting ministry officials from the education ministries in Ethiopia and Tanzania, where this same project is implemented. They are here in Munyonyo. As I speak now, I'm sure they are setting off to Chegegwa, Chaka, and they're going to Lamuo to have an exchange visit, and this will culminate into a conference on Thursday, June the 30th, and then July the 1st. And we hope that the Minister of Education will come to open this. Now, specifically in Uganda, the project is located in 9 districts, and these districts host refugees. There are quite a number. Of course, there's Arua, there's Madiokolo, there's Terego, there's Isinjiro that hosts Nachivale. We have Chikube that hosts Changwali, and Chegegwa, where they are heading, Lamuo and Kitgum, and all these other partners that we earlier on mentioned are in those areas. And the interest is actually to see that pre-primary education and then primary education improves, and this we are doing in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, working with the departments that are very, very pertinent, like the basic education department, and then the teacher education training and teacher education training and development department under the Ministry of Education as well. Also realizing that around the child there are about 3 factors around them. The teacher is the most immediate, but also there's the parent, you and I. Then also we have the community itself. So we are targeting the teacher to see that the teachers, we work with ministry to professionally develop teachers to embrace this methodology, change a bit of their strategies and thinking to see that the Ugandan child achieves quality education.
Okay, so Opondo, walk me through it. You focus on the teacher. What's the period of focus on the teacher to be able to help them, adopt some of these techniques and methodologies, and then when it comes to classroom, how do they roll it out to the classroom? And what has been the response of parents whose children have actually gone through this kind of teaching?
Earlier on we spoke about studies. We did some research around parents and their perception of play. And it's the same that you might know that when you find a child playing, you think they're wasting time.
Yes.
Kiboko, what are you doing? Stop playing. And we do all these things. I'm reading my newspapers. Can you leave me alone? So these studies actually have proven, they're showing that parents are quite not very, very, embracive of this. But now the attitude is actually changing because we are proving this. I want to walk you through what we are doing currently. We have developed materials for training teachers. Just recently, last week, we converged all these 9 district teachers, we call them trainers of trainers, from the primary teachers colleges in Bulera Koa Primary Teachers College in Hoima. And we took them through this methodology. In August, they are going to now roll it out to the teachers in these locations. And this is going to be the first cohort with which we are piloting and testing. And after this, then we will find a way of scaling to with other partners, but scaling with other schools. And like Play Matters does not own the schools, but government of Uganda owns the schools. So we are working with them to see that the skills are transferred to the teachers. And once the teachers are trained, there is what we call the TDMA structure under the Teacher Education Training and Development Department that supports teachers even when they're in school. So we have what we call coordinating tutors who will, after the training, proceed to go to these schools to see that these teachers are actually embracing this methodology and trying it.
Okay.
And like I said, just before you come in, that beyond just training them, the idea is that ultimately, beyond the 9 refugee hosting districts, this is something that we want to, with evidence, when you present it to government, we want government to take it up and roll it out across all our Ugandan children. But for now, we are targeting the refugee community and the host community.
Okay, Joseph, speaking of governments, I know you have earlier mentioned about the collaboration you're having with the Ministry of Education, Uganda, Tanzania, and Ethiopia coming collectively together to do study visits. Thereafter, it will mushroom into a conference. But before we get into that, what you're saying sounds interesting to the ear, especially given the fact that education has taken a totally new turn thanks to COVID-19. We have been made aware of other ways that children can actually consume education, one of them being online. So inclusion of play into the curriculum is important. Have you had these conversations with the Ministry of Education in consideration of the current curriculum?
Yes, we have. And I should have also said that we are working collaboratively with government to push for the agenda. Because first of all, the sector right now is more interested in quality education, which we are aligning ourselves with. But also we realize that government has a 2-year plan to allow children return to school, stay in school and complete school because of the COVID break. And we've been supporting in all these settlements and host communities their efforts around mobilization, around training of teachers, around capacity building, around providing psychosocial training to just prepare teachers who had been away from school for a very long period of time to come back and actually settle in and get back to routine and things like that. So we are actually collaborating with government on some of these efforts to see that our child, the Ugandan child, gets the education that they deserve. You mentioned something around online education. Play Matters has a multimedia component of it, which will digitize all this content to first of all allow teachers train and improve. We are developing content and materials around, in collaboration by the with Ministry of Education departments. We meet, go through this together, align it to the curriculum, align it to the syllabus that we have, and then see that this rolls out. So there's a multimedia component that will digitize content, that will promote distance learning for teachers, and see that the teacher eventually transfers these skills into the classroom. So that play becomes actually a methodology that is embraced by every teacher and improves the learning and well-being of our children.
Well, Joseph, in your closing remarks, what's the future of Play Matters as far as enhancing education system is concerned?
In the next 5 years, while we are here, we envision a country that has, children that have learned in their very natural state, children that are not pushed to learn in a rote way, cram work, children that are critical thinkers, children that are very, very creative, children that contribute to this community, that contribute very meaningfully to the society. You and I know that where there's a bit of play, and especially a play that is purposeful around learning, there are rules. So these rules also even impart values. So the benefits are immense. We look at, we want to see a 360-degree turn from these complaints that we keep making, that what's wrong with the future generation of today? What's wrong with that? You're in senior 6, you can't even write, you're in P. So this is what we want to see that, at the end of the 5 years of this program here in Uganda, improvement of the quality of education. That's what we envision.
Thank you so much, Joseph. And that's Joseph